There's a reason why millions of people decompress with painting. Why the Bob Ross YouTube channel has hundreds of millions of views, and that's modern day viewers. Painting is an emotional release. But it's also creative, and as a hobby, it can be really rewarding. But painting is also messy, it's expensive. It represents a luxury of time and resources a lot of us don't have, and in a time when everyone and everything is competing for our attention day in, day out, while we're doom scrolling, a lot of us have dreamed of sipping a cup of coffee, slowly, methodically attempting to recreate a beautiful landscape, just one patient brushstroke at a time. But if you're like me, two working parents, munchkins, school, it feels like a pipe dream, something for retirement. Not anymore. I'm so excited to dive in with the creator of Vermillion. Effectively, this is an oil painting simulator in virtual reality, but it's so much more than that. I think Thomas, who we're about to talk to, has unlocked something really beautiful here. This is VR Pod, the virtual reality podcast. I'm Danny Porter. Let's dive in. We are here today with Thomas van den Berge of Mountain Studios, talking to us from South Holland, Netherlands. Welcome to VR Pod podcast, Thomas.
Yes, hi Danny. Thank you very much for having me on the show.
I'm really excited to have you on to talk about this really incredible piece of VR software. And I just want to say it right. I think Vermillion is a masterpiece. I think you've captured what this technology is capable of, where it's going. So to kick off, why don't you just tell us a bit about yourself, your journey that led to you to create Vermillion?
Yeah, so I've been a professional Unity and Unreal developer for the past 6 or 7 years. And my first introduction to VR was when at my company where I was working at the time, for my employer, we got the Oculus DK2, the development kit 2 in 2016. For just one small project we did back then. But when I first tested the device, I was immediately awestruck, the first VR experience, this is really something else. And since then, really the VR bug has bitten me, and I want to do more with it. But at the job I was doing was for museums and for commercial enterprise use. And there wasn't that much of a VR market. So I was always hoping to get a new VR project, but usually it was just regular projection mapping or touchscreens or phone-based AR and not a lot of VR going on. So I've always been sitting on my hunger to do more with VR, right? So I started doing it in my spare time and got the original Vive headset, and then started prototyping, doing projects in Unity or Unreal on the side. I did a project where you can ride on a dragon's back and fly around, and just start testing stuff. And then, I think at the end of 2020 and going into 2021, my girlfriend and I decided to go on a trip around the world, right? So we quit our jobs and we wanted to do a 6-month travel, first to Southeast Asia and then to South America. But then COVID hit, right? When we were not even halfway into the trip, we had to return haphazardly because everything was closing down. The locals were very wary of tourists. We had to come back. So we came back to Belgium, stayed in an apartment that was luckily available to us because we didn't have a place to stay for ourselves, right? We also couldn't go to our parents, obviously, because you're not allowed to see family members, not allowed to see friends. So we were kind of locked off back in this part of the world, feeling down because we had quit our jobs. We had to quit our travel, most importantly. So I was kind of looking for some peace of mind. I kind of rediscovered Bob Ross on YouTube. He has this really zen quality to him. And I figured, this could be a fun thing to try in VR, to paint along with him. So I made a quick prototype. I posted on LinkedIn, which was my only social media back then. Didn't have Facebook or Twitter. Even though I only had 60 or 70 contacts, it went kind of viral. There was a lot of positive feedback from it, and it seemed to be a thing that people wanted to do, right? There was a lot of people who resonate with the idea of finally being able to paint along with Bob without the actual cost of all the setup. if you have a VR headset. And yeah, kind of since then, I just kept working on it. I kept at it. So yeah, that's basically the origin story of how I got around to making Vermillion.
That's awesome. I love that Bob Ross is also kind of at the heart of this story because
Oh yeah.
everyone I've told about this has been like, wait, my cousin even the other day, he's like, you're telling me I can pull up a YouTube video of Bob Ross and sit there and paint like a wet on wet style painting in VR, and he was all over it. He's like, well, I'll see you next year. He's like, I'm out. um, so I know you've had an active Discord channel for some time, and I heard about Vermillion was coming to Quest 2 several months ago. I'm in an immersed co-working channel, and someone was like, "This is going to be the next big thing." And he's like, "You can get a if you go in, they're beta testing it to the standalone Quest." What has the response been like since going from the early stage with LinkedIn to an active Discord to tethered VR to now bringing Vermillion to this very large untethered audience? I mean, I'm seeing it everywhere. So what's that been like?
Yeah, it's been like a steady growth. Starting off with it being just me, during development, and then I put up my Discord channel pretty early. And there were like, I don't know, two people in there just idling, waiting for something to happen. And then I announced it, and I think maybe June or something of last year originally that was coming to Steam. And then I was lucky that Upload VR picked the story up, and they said I was releasing in the summer. And then my first beta tester started rolling in, right? So I was being very, very lucky with some very talented beta testers in the original phase who are like digital artists and traditional artists. And they've been really vital in giving good feedback. I've implemented all of it into making the experience what it is today. Um, and then yeah, with Steam, it was organically quite successful. When it launched, even though I had like zero marketing and also no idea how to do any kind of marketing, it was still in top selling for over a week. Even like the top three spots. So yeah, there was definitely like a lot of resonance with people who want to try this. And the same now with the press release. And yeah, I mean, it's just so amazing that there's this ever growing community of people, and there's always like two camps. There's the people who have never painted before, and they're like, I didn't even think I had an interest in painting, but I've picked it up and I can't put it down since then. They really discover this new side of them, which I think always is amazing. And there's also people who are either traditional painters or digital painters who are used to creating, and they really see the benefit of it. They really enjoy the way the color is mixing realistically. And then mostly just saying, even today there was a new review saying like, I love painting, but I hate the mess of it. I hate the setup. You need to get all your stuff out of the closet, put everything up. By then you've already wasted an hour. And then by the end of it, you need to clean everything back up. So, and now it's just like, okay, you put on the Quest, like even especially now it's untethered, right? Just put on the Quest and done. You're ready to go instantly. So yeah, people really appreciate it, and I think it's been an incredible ride. And I think one of the most I don't know, sort of surreal experiences of it is there's a couple of built-in tutorials like on YouTube, but they're made in Vermillion. Of course, you can also follow along with like normal old paint tutorials, but I also wanted to have Vermillion tutorials in there, and one of them is with me showing how to do a Bob Ross style painting with Vermillion. Just the best use of the tools, because of course it's not 100%. You can always do more with a real brush. The way Bob uses his brushes very creatively. So I do a tutorial where I do this archetypical style Bob painting with like mountains in the background and a pine tree there and the snow on the mountains, the typical thing. And so there's the video has been watched like over 10,000 times already, and there's all these people who are now learning to paint for the first time with me. So every day in the Discord, there's people showing like, okay, this is my first painting ever, and it's my painting, and it's so surreal that I'm like, in a way, this virtual Bob Ross of the Quest generation. It's like, yeah, it's a very surreal feeling.
It is so cool being in that Discord in where people are posting their art. and they're so proud of it. I mean, they really are, and you're watching it come to life. I mean, and I like how you say there's different camps. There's people that have been painting all their life, and they're coming in, and they just love being able to put on a headset and do what they've always done. But there's this whole other subset of people that have maybe always wanted to paint, or maybe they didn't know they wanted to paint, and now they're digging in. And some of these works are, I mean, actually a lot of them are just very good. Like, people are really putting hours and their heart and soul into these pieces of art. I saw the other day someone had it printed and was going to start to use it as artwork on their walls. And I even had an idea. I'm like, boy, we just built a kid's room. What if I did like a planet themed kind of art all for my 3-year-old who's like obsessed with the solar system? Like, there's so many ideas you could have here. So are there any stories as you've been watching this art just come alive that have really stood out to you, or any particular works or particular stories from people that have really connected with you?
Yeah, the first thing that jumps into mind is just like you said now with your child. One of the Discord members a couple of months ago now, I think, they let their, I think, 6 or 8 year olds into VR for a short time just to mess around with painting, because normally, if you get actual painting tools for children, there's going to be a lot of cleanup involved, right? So let them have their creativity loose in VR, and they had a great time. And then they actually, as a surprise, the father printed their artwork and put it up in their own bedroom. So it's like a very surreal experience for the 6 or 8 year old, to have painted something in VR and then suddenly to have it in real life, in your own room. So that was like a really fun story. And yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of people who have, like, I don't know, really discovered this new side of them and like have found purpose in a way. That there has been back in the Steam release, someone contacted me and they were like, I really want to thank you personally for making Vermillion, because now I'm part of this community creating artwork. And they didn't really know what to do with their life at that point. And then they found this community and they found that they can actually create good looking pieces of art, and it really gave them a sense of purpose. So I think it's a very beautiful thing. And yeah, I'm every day, like you said, every day I'm amazed to see what people are creating. um and yeah, pouring hours into it. One of the very active members of the official Facebook group, his name is Jeff. Like, every day he's making sometimes even several paintings. And he's like, he didn't paint before, but since he got on Quest, he's just unstoppable. He's been doing all of the Looney Tunes characters, sharing it with everyone he knows. He's just like, he's really into it, and he's just really become creative. And you see this progression, with many people. Some of them paintings are just insanely good, and and people are asking, did you paint before you got into Vermillion? And you're like, no, Vermillion is the first time I painted. And the progression is just insane, for the people who are following tutorials on YouTube and putting in the effort to learn. It's really impressive. So yeah, plenty of stories, and just always amazing.
And Thomas, you're a solo developer, which I think is just amazing. And that's one of the things I love about VR right now. I mean, these are the pioneers, the trailblazers of this new technology, and they're not these big, massive budget shops. Like, you can create, if you have the initiative and the talent, of this kind of best-selling software. And you're already, I'm seeing, taking advantage of some of these even relatively new features. I mean, you probably know when the Quest came out, it wasn't really built for hand tracking and other things and pass through. You've utilized the pass through really quickly. Do you see yourself continuing in the short term to update your software as the Quest changes over the next several months to the next year?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely um, very interested in using any features which can enhance the experience, because pass-through, like you said, is a very new feature and was also very experimental for applications to implement it. But it was, as soon as I learned about the possibility of having it in there, like really a priority for me to also utilize it. And I've gone through great lengths during the porting process to make sure that it does actually work. It's not that straightforward. Um, but it was something which I knew would give like a huge benefit, because I think especially for VR, one of the big like hurdles to its use is that you're locked off from the external world, which is beneficial if you want to, if you want to be fully in the zone, free of distractions. That's amazing. You can just immerse yourself in whatever environment. But sometimes you just want to sit in your living room and still be able to talk with your partner or have a look on your baby if you're sleeping well. You don't want to be completely closed off. I read this article from a journalist who said, like, ever since I became a father, I was unable to use my Quest anymore because I can never have like a second of not being able to check if they're okay. And I think, okay, posture is like a really crucial feature that breaks down this barrier. So I really wanted to have it in there. And same when new features are coming along, I'm definitely always interested in using the new features which come along. So hand tracking is a maybe at this point, because there are benefits to using the controller with Vermillion, because you get the haptic feedback when you're pressing against the canvas. So the haptics help you to know if you're colliding, and you also get all the button inputs, which are definitely making life a lot easier. If you need to do undo or redo a stroke, it's a lot easier to have a button input than making some kind of hand gesture or having some kind of floating UI. So hand tracking is a potential, yes, but not one that I'm pursuing right now. But I'm sure there's a lot more coming. Also, even considering stuff like social VR, one of the big features that I'm adding first is going to be like a gallery feature that you're able to expose your own artworks or do an exposition along with friends, and then and do a little gallery show, invite people over on Quest, and then these social interactions will also become interesting to have. So yeah, as the technology progresses, I'm all aboard, especially with new generations of hardware. Like we know that Project Cambria is going to be color pass through. So that's going to be really interesting to use with an application like Vermilion, that you're going to be able to paint, on plein air, actually paint from real life, but with a virtual easel. That's going to be really interesting to see. Yeah.
Looking to the future, what are you most excited about with these new technologies? You mentioned the Cambria. I think they're planning that, for the end of this year, even. It could come out. Apple is coming out with their own headset. There are other competitors. I mean, they've seen how successful the Quest has been and how it's really blowing up. Looking way down the line, what are some as the hardware changes? What are you most excited about as a developer of VR?
But honestly, I think one of the big things for me is actually there's like a user comfort, because like right now, like the Quest is kind of unwieldy in a sense. It's a pretty heavy device, and for me it's fine, and I think probably for all grown men it's fine to use. But for my girlfriend, for instance, she can't really use it a lot because it's just very front heavy, and she's also a glasses wearer, and it's very uncomfortable to use with glasses. So I think that going forward, like user comfort would be a big thing. It needs to be a lot lighter, like just smaller in form factor, built-in diopter, like they are probably going to have with the Cambria, with the pancake lenses. Good built-in audio, and yeah, of course, color pass-through. So I think all of these, like, just basic comfort features are not to be taken lightly. I think even more important than adding stuff like I don't know, mouth tracking, which is I think one of the features which are also coming soon. I think like just basic comfort is a lot more important, because you open up to a wider user base, and the possibility of using the device for longer sessions. I think people who are using their headset for more than an hour are really like the ones who are really diehard right now. It's there's still a certain fatigue to it. It presses against your face. You get
Yeah.
the weight of the device. So I think it's going to be a major thing, just to have like a super lightweight device on your head, instead of this big old clunky toy which you currently have to put up with.
One of the things that jumped out to me right away with Vermilion is that it really does make painting accessible. And you got into a little bit about this with time and space and just the cleanup afterwards. But also there's the cost. Like painting is expensive, and that's a lot of setup for a lot of people to engage in a hobby like this. And my wife has always loved wet on wet painting, but gosh, we have a 1-year-old and a 3.5-year-old, and a basement room, and there's not as much space for that, not as much time. So that hobby has kind of fallen by the wayside. This has really excited her. Have you been hearing that story? Like, have you heard that from other people?
Yeah, definitely. One of the active members, she is professionally an illustrator for children's books. And she said like, oh, she used to love to do actual painting, right? But she lives in an apartment. And normally, when you do real oil painting, there's a lot of fumes involved. You got the paint thinner, which is toxic. So you need to have good ventilation in your room. And she said like, yeah, it's impossible when you don't have like a proper studio environment, you can't do actual painting. And now she's got Vermillion, and she's like so excited that she's able to take this hobby, which she used to have, this passion that she used to have, and still you do it without, the limits that you get of the physical environment. And yeah, and plenty of people have the same sentiment. You're normally don't have the dedicated space for putting up a canvas and getting all the equipment. And people are also saying like, I do have this stuff, but this saves me the money for being able to experiment first. So they will do like they will experiment with their composition and their their next piece in Vermilion first, before dedicating their recurring equipment costs. Like the paints are indeed very expensive, so they can just do all their practices, their studies they want, and when they want to do a real physical piece, then they break out the paints. So yeah, I mean, there's been quite a few people who are voicing this, that this is just a more accessible and cost-friendly experience, of course, provided you already have a Quest. But then again, I think with the cost of materials, you can probably, if you're like an avid painter, I think you can probably make back the investment for the Quest pretty quickly.
Very true. Thomas, it's been awesome talking to you. I think this is great software. I loved hearing your story, how you came up with this, the whole process. Is there anything you'd like to leave listeners of VR Pod with today?
Yeah, I think just in general, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, is painting something for me or not at all? I think, I want to invite you to give it a try. It's not as hard as it may seem, and for many people, it's just this very zen experience. So I think just discover maybe this new side of yourself, and without all of the hassle that you normally would have. I think it's very much worth your time to check it out, to see if it's something that might suit your interests.
Awesome. Thanks, Thomas.
Thanks for having me, Danny.
This has been VR Pod, the virtual reality podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I would love your feedback or your ideas for future episodes, so please send a note to danny@vrpod.net. That's danny@vrpod.net, and leave a review, subscribe, and have a wonderful week. Danny out.